What's up, guys? Barry Gaming here, back with some more Idle Heroes news for December 23rd, 2020. Yes, Christmas is getting even closer. We got pretty much like one more day, about a day and a half until the Christmas event goes live. And today we are going over the skills of Phorcys, the new Dark Mage. So I have gone over the skills, I've looked at it, even the character model. It essentially feels like a Tix, but in the Dark faction. Just initial thoughts. Feels like he will be a lot stronger in PvP than a Tix potentially, but less powerful in things like Tower, Aspen Dungeon, Vortex, where Tix is still, I think, going to reign supreme, mainly because he does damage based on the enemy's attack. Whereas this hero does it based off like buffs and HP per round and things like that. But first off, let's jump into the video so you guys can check out what they put out, and then we will jump into his skill card.
The Doombringer, who has been sleeping for a long time, suddenly wakes up when the void befalls and changes the future of Idleland. For Phorcys, no disaster is the greatest disaster.
Where do you want to go, Pudding?
Attack deals damage to the enemy with the highest attack and reduce them a percentage of all damage dealt for several rounds. Self-resonance, when the round ends, deals damage to all enemies equal to percentage of their max HP and inflicts one layer of soul corruption that lasts for several rounds. When the magic bell is ringing, and tragedy is coming.
So there you have it. That's kind of what it looks like, but of course those combats always look a little weird in the promo videos. Let's jump into the skill set and actually deep dive into it. Let's start off with Imminent Doom, the active skill. Damage deals 800% attack damage to 4 random enemies with a 100% chance to remove 1 attribute buff from the enemy and inflict 3 layers of curse decay. So just the first part of that, the 800% attack against 4 random enemies, pretty much cut and dry, same thing as Tix with an extra ability added in, and that curse decay skill effect will trigger when the enemy receives an attribute buff. Once triggered, each layer of curse decay offsets 1 attribute buff and deals 1500% attack damage after that the curse expires. So a lot to take in right there. Curse of Decay. So that in PvP is going to be extremely strong, I think. You got to realize how many buffs are going out nowadays, especially people that are loading up with tons of Rogans. They have a Scarlet Queen on their team. That's a lot of buffs. Even Tix. I mean, if this hits Tix, it's going to remove those attack buffs he's getting. That could be a lot of damage, because then the upgraded version of it will be dealing 1400% of attack damage. That's crazy. Against 4 enemies, and it will put 3 layers of the curse of decay. But that curse of decay will be doing 2500% of attack damage for every attribute buff, up to 3. That sounds really, really strong, and I think this hero might make Amun-Ra even more useful in the PvP meta if we see a bunch of people using Phorcys. So right off the bat, I mean, that ability, you can basically compare it straight up to Tix's Soul Explosion active. They're doing about the same amount of damage, except Tix's is going to be doing it also based on what their attack is, and we'll do an attack steal, which is a buff, which this can get rid of, and his will silence or horrify, whereas this one will, of course, remove buffs. So overall, very, very reminiscent of Tix. I mean, it even looks very similar art style. This is interesting. Let's go to the second passive skill here, and that's going to be Necromancy, which is going to give him 20% HP, 40% attack. That's a lot. 70% skill damage, which doesn't sound like a ton when his active is already doing such a high percent of skill damage. Control immunity and speed. So just like most lighter dark heroes, they are getting 5 stat boosts. Speed is going to be really important there. Upgraded, of course, 30% HP, 50% attack, 90% skill damage, 30% control immunity, and 100 speed. So pretty standard for a dark hero. His first passive, his basic attack passive, Dark Coil, is going to do 600% attack. Okay, that's pretty good. Against the enemy with the highest attack, again, very reminiscent of Tix, and reduces them 25% of all damage dealt for 3 rounds. So a debuff very similar to what Scarlet Queen kind of does now. Of course, the Void imprinted version will do the basic attack, deals 800% of attack against the enemy with the highest attack, and reduces them 30% of damage dealt for 3 rounds. Not stackable, so you can't stack this to Oblivion. Yeah, you can't stack this like Tix's ability, so that kind of makes it worse for things like Aspen Dungeon. Granted, base, it's 600% versus Tix's 180%, I believe. So it's going to hit harder naturally, but it doesn't deal the extra damage based on the target's attack, so kind of just a weaker version. Like literally Dark Coil versus Nether Touch, like it feels worse. So yeah, let's move on to the last passive, Soul Resonance. So this passive is when a round ends, deals damage to all enemies equal to 8% of their max HP, capping at 1500% of his self attack, and inflicts 1 layer of soul corruption, which lasts for 6 rounds. So as the rounds go on, this is going to stack up. Skill effect, each layer of soul corruption corrupts 8% of the target's max HP up to 40%. Corrupted HP cannot be restored. That's what you saw in the video, where the health bar basically started to shrink down and you couldn't heal back up past it. The Void version, when the round ends, deals damage to all enemies equal to 10% of their max HP. Same percentage, 1500%. And yeah, basically can do 10% up to 40%. So kind of crazy. You're basically dealing damage and then also limiting how much healing they can do, which is kind of big because, I mean, Ignis is around, Amun-Ra's around, you got Rogans that want to heal, you got Scarlet Queen that heals, you got Swordflash Shia that heals. Now that part sounds pretty strong. All damage, or damage caps at 1500% attack, but you're pretty much going to be running this Phorcys with like a speed attack stone with probably something like either an AMB or a crown, upgraded of course. This is going to be interesting because we are going to be able to test Phorcys on our Evil Meme team, which is very bone bare as far as like pay to win artifacts go. We don't have really anything upgraded. And then we also are going to be testing him on like a pure endgame account. So you guys are going to get the first initial reaction this week on my account at a weaker, more standard person's level. Of course, we're going to have like ticks and carries in our lineup, but it is what it is. And then we're going to be jumping on Soul's account most likely and looking at the endgame meta with Phorcys. But again, initial reaction here just by checking out these skills. Number 1. He's essentially Tix in the Dark faction. Number 2, I think he's actually stronger in PvP and potentially some other locations, but I do think Tix is still going to reign supreme for most players when it comes to tower, Aspen Dungeon, and Vortex. He has potential though. Phorcys definitely sounds like he has potential, but we're gonna have to find out exactly where. I mean, there might be situations, even in Vortex, this is good, because if they are healing a ton, this soul resonance is gonna help a lot, so that they, especially if you're facing like a bunch of Garudas or something like that, that makes it so the Garudas can't heal as much. That's not too bad. You're lowering damage incoming with Dark Coil, all damage reduce. But it's not stackable. This is really interesting. Because the one big difference here, the reason why Tix is so good in places like Aspen Dungeon and Vortex is because both his active and his basic have a portion of their damage that's going to deal damage based on the enemy's attack. And in Aspen Dungeon and Vortex, the enemy's attack is ridiculous. It's so high, and it doesn't have an attack cap like a lot of Phorcys abilities have. So, is this going to be a cool hero? I think so. Is it going to be better than Tix? I don't know. Maybe in PvP. Maybe in PvP. But as far as other spots, we're going to have to see it. I mean, the heroes look very reminiscent of each other. Very similar color schemes. So, yeah, is what it is. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. We're going to get even more news tomorrow. So definitely stick around for the news video tomorrow. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. The goal is to get 35,000 subs by the end of the year. So we can do it. Let's get it done. And I'll see you guys next time.
How can